Moms for Liberty really worked miracles.
We have a crisis in America in public education. This is the future of our kids and our country.
You are joyful warriors.
And we are just getting started. Hi, welcome to the Fire of Liberty Show. I'm Tina Deskovich, CEO and co-founder of Moms for Liberty, and we are the show that brings you the frontline warriors, moms and dads in this culture war that are fighting tooth and nail. They are fighting for the survival of America. They are fighting for better education in America. And today's episode, we have our very first man ever joining us today on the Fire of Liberty Show. Usually I bring you the chapter chairs from across the country. And we do actually have 6 or 7 chapter leaders that are men. Our guest today is not a chapter chair, but he does work for Moms for Liberty. And he's a remarkable man. And I will say that often in Moms for Liberty, we quote Esther 4:14, such a time as this. And that's usually related to a woman. It's usually, Esther, she was a woman, our moms are women. But in this case, created for such a time as this, I think refers to Charlie Misseijer. And we're going to hear his story and how he came to Moms for Liberty today. We're going to hear about what he does for Moms for Liberty. And most of our moms and dads really appreciate working with Charlie. And so Charlie Misseijer is our Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs at Moms for Liberty. And I want to welcome you, Charlie, to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Tina. It's good to be here. And I just want to thank you for, first of all, the opportunity to be on this show and to really brag on our parents, but also for the opportunity to be the first guy hired at Moms for Liberty. I don't know what you call that. Is that like breaking the concrete floor or
the concrete floor instead of the glass ceiling?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when we interviewed you, Tiffany and I interviewed you together, we were concerned. And in your role, we'll talk a little bit more later about your role, but you're hands-on with a lot of our moms and members. And I wasn't sure how you were going to deal and manage with that. But, how long have you been here?
About 1.5 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm happy to say that you're doing a remarkable job. But before we dig in, we said in the preview here, we told people that Charlie's heritage is rather interesting and fascinating. A double immigrant. I had to ask you what a double immigrant was, and we're going to get into all of that. But first, we're going to take a minute and talk about some of the wins, and only because it's really exciting. And your job revolves around legislative wins. And so a lot of legislative sessions have just wrapped up, and we haven't pushed out any information nationally on wins. And so just tell us what's going on. Are we winning, Charlie? Are we winning?
Wait, Tina, I thought we were talking about the Epstein list, the moon landing, Bigfoot and Nessie.
You've been on social media too much lately. Actually, all of our last posts on social, it's like, release the Epstein list. I'm like, I don't have what are you talking about? People get so obsessed.
I think production's telling me those aren't in-mission issues. So I want to focus a lot today on our moms and all the great things that they're doing on the front lines. And we have had some remarkable wins over the past 1.5 years since I've taken this job. Last year, we started off with a big win in my home state of South Carolina, the Help Not Harm bill. What that does is it doesn't allow, the child to be transitioned and have those, surgical mutilation procedures. So that was a big win in South Carolina. This year, we're a parental rights focused organization. We've had some great wins as far as what we call PBRs or Parental Bill of Rights in states like Texas. We had a big one in education there. Also, Ohio the governor signed one into law the first week of this year, as well as Indiana. And so our moms were instrumental a big time in really pushing those to the forefront of their legislative priority list and getting those onto the governor's desk and signed. Talking about Texas, we had a big, as you know, fight on the ESA school choice bill, and our moms were leaders in that respect. And so in Texas, we saw that passed. as well as, it's not always in the ones that we get on the governor's desk and sign, but sometimes it's fighting against bad bills. And
Yeah, in blue states,
and
absolutely.
yeah,
So,
well,
what,
and even in red, like Oklahoma, we saw the fight against, and you were in the middle of that as well with me, but the fight against data sharing, where, I mean, it could be shared infinitely and across, I mean, the world. Parents don't want their child's information just falling into anybody's hands. And so we've won some big wins, of course, in red states, but also in blue states fighting against bad bills as well.
yeah, it's remarkable. The numbers you even gave me were phenomenal. I think you said as a whole. So we've been kind of involved in, Moms for Liberty formed at the most local level. We absolutely knew we wanted to get engaged in what was going on at the school district level. Our mission statement right out the gate was we were going to fight at all levels of government, but we really didn't know how we were going to do that, right? That all of the founders were school board members. We knew where we wanted to really drive there in the beginning, but quickly we got involved at the state level. And so it took a full year. The first bill was the Parental Bill of Rights in Florida. That's where we're based. It's where we had the most members. While we were school board members, we were trying to get a Parental Bill of Rights passed. But now we had this grassroots army that was passionate about it. So 200 of them showed up at the Capitol, and that thing got passed pretty easily. But that was almost 3 years ago now. How many bills, you may not have the exact number, but how many overall do you think Moms for Liberty has been instrumental in getting across the finish line, signed into law across the country at this point?
Well, and I want to say for our viewers out there, remember, we are advocating for parents at all levels of government. So I believe it was inevitable from the start that we, move beyond that, county level, the school board level, onto the state level. And of course, there's some things at the national level as well now. But yeah, we've seen some not only big wins, but the amount of wins, I think, is remarkable as well. We've just edged over 100 at this point.
It's amazing.
In 4.5 years.
So you've been around the block, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, but you've been around the block for a handful of years and you've worked for other organizations and you've done different things. What do you really think about an organization that's 4.5 years old, that started with $500 and a box of t-shirts by a few moms in a back bedroom, in 4.5 years having a major impact on getting 100 bills signed into law across multiple states?
I mean, it's just amazing. Like I try to describe that to people, and it just floors me even when I think about it, and I think about it a lot. Like the impact that we've made in such a short time is huge, and it's been so impactful across the landscape. I tell people that before I came to this job, and we'll talk a little more about that later, but I was working, as a school administrator. And I had impact over those children at that school. But what I do now actually touches basically every household in America. I mean, we are impacting as a group every household in America through the policies that we push. It's incredible.
It almost makes me speechless.
Yeah.
I think about these things often also, but I'm down in the weeds sometimes too. And I sometimes when we do our annual reports with our total numbers, I'm in awe. And so I want to back up. We were going to start this off talking about your heritage a little bit, because it's part of your story. It's part of what drives you to do what you're doing. So I want to take everybody kind of through that a little bit with you. Talk about your personal story, a little bit of your journey, talk more about the moms and the wins and your job and how you're interacting with them. And so I think it's going to be a good hour. But let's start with your parents, because it's to me, it's everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
My dad was born in Indonesia in 1949, and it's a very difficult and complicated history that we see there in that country. But when he was born, there was shortly after, it was really right after he was born that there was a revolution, a nationalistic revolution that rose up. And so his family, because of their ethnicity,
where was he born?
and their background, in Indonesia.
Indonesia.
Yeah, Indonesia. Okay. So he was born in Bandung on the island of Java. So he's a Java man, as he likes to say. And
I have never heard of, I mean, I've heard of Java in terms of coffee, but I've never heard of Java as it is like a province or
it's an island.
Oh, it's an
It's a
island.
large
Okay.
island. Jakarta is a big city there.
Okay.
That's probably recognizable.
Yeah.
Bandung is the actual capital of that province. And so there's this long 350-year history of colonization by the Dutch. And the Dutch had been there, and his ethnic descriptor is Dutch Indo. And so he's got this European heritage, but also Indonesian, and there's some Chinese. And I just say I'm a Heinz 57. I've got, all the
Most of us are.
right?
Yeah.
And so he's born in 1949, right at the end of World War II. The Japanese had come in and done an occupation, and there was a lot of turmoil and upheaval. And then they worked with the Indonesians to overthrow the Dutch rule. My dad's first language is Dutch, and so they were put in an internment camp by the mid 1950s. His father, my opa.
So hold on, who controls at this point when he goes
So
into
at this
an
point,
internment camp?
the Japanese had come in and fomented helped foment a nationalistic revolution.
So they created the internment
with the
camp?
Indonesians. They did with the Indonesians that were rising up against that Dutch rule and colonization.
So was your father considered Dutch? Is that why they put him in one?
He was considered Dutch Indo, and so they just call them Indos. And so he's caught, religiously and ethnically, his family's in a very difficult place, caught between, the country of birth and also the country of colonization. And so by the time he's 7, his father is beaten in front of his family, in front of the house in the middle of the road. He's tarred, he's feathered. They were successful people. They owned businesses, but everything was taken from
This is
them.
in the 1950s?
Yes.
I'm surprised tarring and feathering, you hear about it in the 1800s, you hear about it in the revolutionary, time period, but 1950, tarred and feathered.
So 1956, my dad's family is interned. They're put in an internment camp. And his mom and siblings are allowed to get on a ship. They sail the Suez Canal, Mediterranean to Holland, who's taking in the refugees. My grandfather is then detained for about another year before he can rejoin his family. My dad goes from the jungles of Indonesia to the canals skating to school of Amsterdam. He lived on Prinsengracht Street, which was a couple blocks down, same street, couple blocks down from where Anne Frank lived just 12 years before.
Wow, your family is part of history, I would say.
Yeah, there's a lot packed into his 76 years for sure. And so they get to Holland, and my grandfather, who's now rejoined the family, about that time in 1953, President Eisenhower passes an Emergency Refugee Act, and it's to take in people who have fought really against communism. And essentially, if you want to boil it all down, my grandfather in Indonesia, that's who was taking over, and that's who they were really fighting or up against. And communism, is all about government taking, and they took
So the new regime was communist, which is why they put him in an intern camp, because
So Sukarno, the dictator who took over, he was pleasing both communists and anti-communists. A really talented guy to please communists and anti-communists.
Sounds like a mastermind.
And he really was, and he led for about 20 years. Until the mid 1960s, where there was even bigger purge, and that got more attention and eventually helped oust him. But yeah, it was a very difficult time. And so my dad went from Indonesia to Holland, and then 4 years later, they took advantage of this program that the United States had, this refugee program that allowed him to come to Los Angeles. And they had 3 cities they could choose from: New York, Chicago, or LA. but LA was the most temperate, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting. 3 big cities. Like
Yeah.
there's no good choices there if you ask me.
Right.
But
But the good in the choice was that the Presbyterian Church was helping sponsor some of these families, and they would have a family within the church. And in this case, it was the Presbyterian Church of Culver City, in as part of Los Angeles. There, they would they would have another family set up housing and transportation, and even some initial jobs to help that family get settled. And so my dad, his 4 siblings, his parents, and one of his nephews, his sister's oldest sister's son, came at that time and settled in LA. They lived in projects. They had to work hard. Everybody worked early. My dad was working at 13 years old and contributing to the family and helping them survive. But they did. And the whole reason, I've asked my dad now several times, like, why did he make that decision to uproot the family again from Holland, which I mean was their language? At least they fit in language wise. Why would he come to a country where he couldn't even speak the language and live in projects and be a maintenance person and clean toilets? So why would he go from a business owner all the way to that? And my dad said it was to give us a better opportunity. And
the ultimate American dream.
The ultimate. And my dad and all his siblings, they're so successful. I mean, they might not be millionaires, but they're hard workers, and they've achieved that American dream. And so I'm so thankful. You ask, like what propels me, what motivates me. I don't want to mess that up. I don't want to like he made that sacrifice for my family to have that opportunity. And I don't want to mess that up for me. I don't want to mess it up for my kids. So
he made the decision to impact generations for better, for their future, for his posterity. And what a gift to you. And I greatly appreciate the fact that you don't want to mess that up for your posterity and your children. You and I chatted a little before the show, and it's such a topic that means a lot to me. My passion and hobby, because I'm such a fun person, is genealogy and doing family history. And I have a similar story with my ancestors all coming here from different parts of the world. And I often in my prayers I'm so thankful they came. When I think about what opportunities I've had, their destitute situation, working in factories for decades and living in tenement buildings in New York City and other things. And because they made those hard choices, I have a beautiful life, and I don't take that lightly. I don't, I think one day I'm going to see them again, and I owe them a great debt of gratitude.
That's right. My dad in particular has been able to achieve that American dream. He told me that in Indonesia, they would go to the cinema and they would watch John Wayne movies. He was all caught up in the John Wayne war movies, but also the cowboy ones. And he's known as the Indonesian cowboy. When he was about 40 years old, he got horses for the first time. And I remember going with him to purchase that first horse. And he was like a little kid in a candy shop. We lived in an equestrian area in Simi Valley, California, about 10 minutes from the Reagan Library. And, for him to just ride around that neighborhood, everybody knew who he was. And he was probably the Indo cowboy there.
The Indo cowboy.
Achieving his American dream. That was the capstone, right?
That is great. And so we're going to take a break for a second, play a little video for you. It takes 1 minute to talk about Summit, which is coming up in less than 90 days. I think we've passed the marker of narrowing it down to 90 days. It's here in Orlando, Florida. We hope you'll join us at momsforliberty.org/Summit 25. We're going to show you this video, encourage you to register. And when we come back, we're going to talk more to Charlie about his personal journey and story and what he does for Moms for Liberty, and more about the moms and the wins and what he does here.
Elena, what state are you from?
New York.
Hawaii.
I'm from Texas, Washington. I have my kids actually with me to do the march.
Wherever I go, odds are there is a Moms for Liberty group or a whole tribe in the room sounding off loud and proud.
And you could see the passion here because it's about supporting kids.
Pledge to each other that we will live like men and women who are determined to remain free.
I'm for parental rights all the way.
I love how that ends. I'm for parental rights all the way. And
Amen.
so are we at Moms for Liberty. We hope you'll join us October 16th through the 19th, the Gaylord Palms in Orlando, Florida. It's going to be a really great 4 days. We are digging in now and getting confirmations on speakers, which we'll start announcing in just a couple weeks. But, you know, as you can see from the video, we get some good speakers.
As the kids say, it's going to be lit. Do they still say that?
I don't know. Charlie, don't go
probably
there.
Probably not. I've been out of the classroom too long.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that still a word? Comment now below if you're watching live. Is it going to be lit? Is that still a thing?
Lit. Fire. Hey, we're the Fire Liberty Show, right?
Oh, bad. Dad jokes. Of course, you're going to bring them too. Charlie Misseijer, we're speaking to today. He is the first man on the Fire of Liberty. This is episode 15. So we've had 15 weeks of the show so far. Wow. And you're the first man. Dude. Yeah, you're representing all mankind in Moms for Liberty. No pressure.
No pressure. Yeah, no pressure coming into this job as well. I remember Tina wasn't sure that a man could do this job.
Is that discrimination? I better don't tell HR, but I'm an open book. And I remember saying in the interview, I just don't know. I don't know if this is a good role I'd like to have more men in our organization, but I didn't know if that was the right role. But it turns out it's the perfect role for you. So I want to talk a little bit about you now, your family. I think you need to tell everyone the number of children you have because it's shocking. And, your education, how'd you.
Well, I've been training for this role all my life. I've got 5 daughters and a wife at home. So with all that estrogen, it's like a treadmill of training every single day for this job. But yeah, I am a proud husband of my wife, Tamara, who's at school.
Can we give Tamara a shout out? Yeah, I've now met Tamara and
hey, love you, babe. Thanks for putting up with me. And
your 130,000 women that you have to work with every day. Like she's a strong woman to support you.
She has her moments, but we have her moments, but
she's great.
But she's incredible. She's the most incredible woman and wife and mother that I know, hands down.
And what just real quick, what does she do for a living? I think that's important.
Yeah, she's a public school teacher. She's not always been in public school. We've done a lot of things with our kids school wise, but we taught in a private school for 20 years. And then and I say we because we both taught at that school. It's a very unique situation, and we're able to be with our children. And that's like the biggest reason we did that. And then she's the last 4 years been teaching in a public school. And so she's going into her 26th year of teaching, just started that on Friday.
That makes her a warrior, that alone. Right. Hail to, I know we give teachers a lot of grief in our organization, and we've tried to focus a lot on the bad teachers, but majority of teachers, hands down, are dedicated individuals that care about children, want them to have a bright future. And so hail Tamara.
Yeah,
we're gonna hail Tamara right now.
And hail our teachers for sure. And we've homeschooled too. So there was a period when the kids were tiny, that we homeschooled as well. And so shout out to all the homeschoolers out there and the moms and dads who do that. That's a big job.
It is a big job. I have not ever homeschooled. I wouldn't, it's not right for everyone, but I have a lot of close friends.
Well, it's not for everyone, but for those who choose to do it, more power to you. I mean, it's a great experience, and I know our children are more enriched for that time that they were able to do it.
It's just my personal opinion as someone who's never homeschooled. I think you have to start kind of young to be successful at it. I inserted myself with one of my children, probably middle school, where I thought, I'm going to take charge of this. And it's hard at that age. It's hard to build that rapport that I am in charge of even your schooling, they get in their mind that you're not their teacher. And if they're headstrong, it's challenging.
Yeah. Well, we we used to really separate that. I had a dedicated classroom in the house, painted a bunch of primary colors, and Tamara went by Mrs. Misair, and we put them in school uniforms.
So, are you serious?
I am totally serious. Yes. It was not mommy. It was Mrs. Misair.
I don't know if I know you said you had a number of girls, but I don't think you said the number of children total that you have.
No. So I was going to go back there, but we have 8 children.
So putting them in uniforms and Mrs. Misair and painting the room, actually you have 8 kids is it's half a classroom nowadays, because
and it was yes ma'am, no ma'am. I mean, there's separation there.
You did it right. I love it.
So 8 children, 2 are moved out now. We still have 6 at home. And the 2 that are moved out, they're married. We have our first grandchild, and
congratulations.
Yeah. And I just asked my daughter, he's 1, but what are you thinking about school for him in the future? And she said, oh, maybe homeschool, but we'll see that.
But not in a uniform,
probably not as regimented as you all. But.
It's so great. I did not know that. I think that's a great story. And so you have 8 children.
I do. And I think, like most of our parents out there, we can say that is our primary motivation for what we do, right? I mean, when we boil it all down, why are we sticking our nose in this fight? I mean, it's not a comfortable fight. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy road. It's the path, less chosen by most folks. But we're doing this first and foremost for our kids. I always say to the moms in our meetings, I mean, you put anything between mama bear and her cub, they will go to the death for their kid. They just will. And so, I would do anything for my children, anything. And I know Tamara would too. And
so as a dad, I think that dad voice is important. We focus obviously on the mom voice a lot here at Moms for Liberty, but you just articulated really well. As a dad, I would do anything for my children. Moms don't own that category at all.
No. And, there's a lot of talk out there about, how dads can be more involved and that they need to be more involved. And, I do want to encourage our fathers to be more present, to engage more, to have those actual dinners at the dinner table with your family. That's one thing my family knows that I am still regimented about, is having dinner together. That's important. And it's not easy, because as the kids get older, their schedules get crazy. And so somebody like me, who's going to hit the half-century mark in a few months, I'm old and I need to eat dinner earlier. It's probably better for me that way. But we find ourselves sitting down at like 7:30 for dinner, because, this kid's getting off this practice, or, this kid is getting back from this event. And, it's hard, but, to be successful in anything, it's not easy. And the thing that I want to be most successful at is being a husband and dad, right? Like, we've got to be really purposeful and intentional in this area. And I don't think we've done that enough. And so I want to encourage the dads and the moms to just make it happen, make those family times happen. The dinners happen, the conversations happen. It's important. It's important to keep a tether to one another in your household. So
there is a great person that once said, there's no success that can make up for failure in the home. And I think about that often. Like, Moms for Liberty could be hugely successful in doing all the things we're doing, but if our employees, our members, our chapter chairs, if they're failing in the home, what's the point of all of this?
That's right. I think we need to be a bigger voice on this. I was talking to you earlier about parental rights versus parental responsibility, and this idea where, I can advocate in my position as much as I want for other people's children and the right to do this or the right to do that. But if I'm not taking that responsibility seriously at home, and failing there, well, then what is the point? What is the point to all this? And I think we need to throw responsibility a little more back on the parent. I don't think we do that enough. So I think there's more conversation to be had there going forward. But yeah.
As a former school board member and a mom who volunteered 10,000 hours in my kids' school,
according to Malcolm Gladwell, that makes you an expert. You're an expert when you dedicate 10,000 hours.
Is that I'm an expert school volunteer?
You must be. You should write the book on it.
First of all, I don't know who Malcolm Gladwell is.
Yeah, he's an author, thinker.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So 10,000 hours makes me an expert volunteer in a school.
Yeah.
In a school. Okay. Well, during my volunteer hours many years ago, when my kids were in elementary school, I often volunteered in the front office. And we live in a little beach community, kind of a middle class, somewhat upper middle class area. Kids get dropped off without shoes because mom got mad or, whatever, like the things, no food, just insane things. This is not an inner city school where that stuff happens even more and more often. And so it was then that I established in my brain, like, parental responsibility is really lacking here. So here we are scrambling the front office to run down to the super Walmart to get shoes. And so at Moms for Liberty, we often complain about government overreach. It's one of the things we fight against the most. And we complain about schools doing things that parents should be doing. I agree with you. We do not talk enough about what parents should be doing, because I've said this publicly many times, schools have picked up some of these things because they care.
That's right.
You think we wanted to run out to Walmart and get shoes? You think we want to make sure your child is fed at this? No, they want to teach your child. But if your child is sitting there with no shoes and no food, you're tying the hands of the school. Like, they're caring people. They want to care for the children. And so first and foremost, parents have to do their job. So that we then can kick the government out from trying to do your job.
Yeah, I see it like in my wife's school district. It is just transitioned to Title I. So they've got 70% poverty rate in that district. And so we see a lot of what you just described. I helped coach a middle school basketball team, my son's team, last year. And to see what were on the feet of some of these boys at practice the first day. I mean, one was wearing sliders, and another had holes in his shoes. And it was very different than like the private school experience that I had, where kids were a little bit more entitled and taken care of, and literally carried Benjamins to school and made it rain, on the lunch area. So this is a very different situation, where there is some level of neglect. And so when an institution like a government run school comes in and fills in that blank, I mean, we have to ask ourselves, are we taking the responsibility that we need to in the home? And I think Moms for Liberty is doing a phenomenal job. I just read something on Facebook last night from one of our chapter chairs in Ohio, and I had never seen her name before. And I don't remember right now. I wish I did so I could give her a proper shout out. But she said, we're thinking about closing our chapter, really discouraged. But we did a 180 and we set up this table for our local school district, and we started handing stuff out. And this was just last night. And it was just such a great outreach to the community, and we're so energized and feel so engaged.
Let's get her on the Fire of Liberty show, Charlie. So go after the show and figure out who it is and let me know.
Yeah, but that was encouraging to me as well, because again, we see so often, and I've recommended even to our local chapters in South Carolina, like, we need to stop throwing stones, and we need to engage the community where they are. And if that's setting up a table and giving out school supplies, we need to show them, that love, because we are supposed to be an outward looking organization. And I really believe at the heart we are, and that's what we do. But sometimes I feel that we do get a bad rap. People only hear the the screaming, at the top of their lungs, and we're joyful warriors. That's not what we're about, right? And so we need to be outward looking, and I really feel that's what describes a joyful warrior, right? That whole concept of Jesus, others, and you, that outward look. I mean, there's that presupposition in scripture that we love ourselves. We don't have to show love to ourselves, but we do need to more often show love to others.
I think a lot of our chapters are doing an excellent job in that area, and it's not very well known. We don't publicize it. I guess it just we try to put it out gently, but we don't scream it from the rooftops. But Brooke in Mecklenburg, for example, every year does that backpack drive in a neighborhood of children that are Title I and can't afford a backpack or shoes or anything. And so there's a lot of our chapters that are doing similar things. I think in South Carolina, there's a chapter that does a prom dress drive every year, and that is highly successful. And they're good about showing the girls, not their faces or whatever, but coming through, from behind, and the number of dresses, and then picking them out, and things like that build community. And Moms for Liberty is doing those things. We've donated over 11,000 wholesome books to schools. Did we hit the 1 million mark in pocket constitutions? And there's a lot of good work. There's volunteer hours being done. I've cleaned up cemeteries in Wisconsin, veteran cemeteries. Like, they're doing all kinds of things. And so I encourage you, if you're watching today and you're not an active member of your local chapter, get on it. There's a role for you. If you want to be the one helping with Teacher Appreciation Week at your local school. I mean, we've done that all across the country, baskets of supplies being delivered and luncheons. And, the PTOs and the PTAs used to cover all those corners. And
and they're just not the way that they used to. And so, activism isn't screaming at the top of your lungs, right? It's making that daily impact on others. And so I want to encourage, our membership just to continue to be outward looking and putting others before ourselves, and plugging into the community that way. That makes the most impact. And when they know you care, they're going to want to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah. Right? I think that's an old teacher thing. They say that they don't know. Help me out. How much you care until they know. They don't care what you have to say till they know how much you care, or something of that nature. Yeah. And so you just had a perfect transition to where I want to go next, about activism. So I want to back up just a couple steps. You mentioned briefly you were an educator for 20 years, but let's talk about that a little. I want to talk about your education, because I somehow forgot in a year and a half what your education background is, and what you've done in your career up till this point. Let's touch on that a little bit, and then we'll move into where it's going on in Moms for Liberty today.
Yeah, I always say my first love is history. I was an undergrad history major at Bob Jones University in South Carolina, a very conservative Christian college. And I went and taught after that for a number of years. And then I decided to go back to school as an almost 30-year-old with 5 kids.
I'm sure Tamara was thrilled about that.
Yeah, I went back to school, not just school, to law school. So I'm probably not right up in the head altogether, but who goes to law school with 5 kids? Me. So that was a little crazy time. Suffice to say, I didn't finish at the top of my class,
but you have a law degree.
But I do. I fought through that, got the law degree, and worked in that area a little bit. But I ended up going back to teaching, and mostly because of the uniqueness of that situation. I went back to California and taught, and that private school was great, allowing my wife and I to teach, and taking our kids and being on the same campus together was, I wouldn't trade that for anything. Those were good years. But they say those who can't do teach. And even though I taught, at the high school level and college level for all these years, I'm like, man, I know God's created me to do as well. And what does that look like? And so I was administrating at a school in South Carolina. We made the move from Los Angeles to Greenville area, South Carolina, about 4 years ago now. And I was administrating at a Christian school there. I'd started a school and working there, and I stepped away from that. And I was like, I want the next step to be the right step, but what does that look like? And so I really had to wait on the Lord. And I did that for a number of months, and it was really a time of soul searching. And in the meantime, one of my school moms, who happened to be the local chapter chair of Moms for Liberty,
That would be Heather.
Heather Mitchell, shout out to Heather,
who tracked me down 4 or 5 times to say, Charlie applied for a job at Moms for Liberty. You should really, really listen to him. You should really, Charlie, so great. She was, I don't know if you knew that, but she was batting for you pretty hard.
So Heather asked me to come speak at the local Moms for Liberty meeting. Well, I hate to admit it, but I hadn't really heard. I heard the name, but didn't really know anything about Moms for Liberty. And this was now about 3 years ago. And so I came in, I believe I spoke about like John Dewey and progressive education and kind of the 100-year history.
That sounds like a whole nother Fire of Liberty episode.
Yeah.
We could go into that.
Yeah, we could go into that. But I started to learn more about Moms for Liberty. I joined the chapter, and Tamara and I, we saw, wow, this looks like a lot of what we value. We value the same things. And so we joined, got a little more involved. And you all posted this job, posting for director. I forget what the original name was, but it's, what I do now as far as the policy legislation side of things. And so Tamara actually was getting the emails, and she sent it over to me, and she says, I know, you're not a woman, you're not a mom, but this looks like you on paper. And I said, babe, I could be anything I want to be today, obviously.
I went back to law school at 30. I could do whatever I want.
I could be a woman, if they need me to be. But,
throw on a dress, a wig, some lipstick. You got it
right?
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dance in a drag show. I mean, anything goes nowadays.
Anything. So I looked at it, I said, I did concur. It looks a lot like what I've trained for my entire life. It's like, it was in this job, fast forward, it's the culmination really of everything that I've trained for academically. And also, I did a little work on the policy side of things with another organization in DC. And so, it's just been a great fit. What can I say? I mean, I hope you agree. But it has been, I feel on my side of things, it's been a really good fit. And yes, there are challenges. There are with any occupation, but I love it. I love what I do.
What do you do, Charlie? What does the director of policy and legislative affairs person do
good question.
At Moms for Liberty, the largest grassroots nonprofit organization in the country that's fighting for parental rights? What do you do?
That's incredible what you just said. By the way, we are the largest by sheer numbers. We're the largest, and we're primarily a volunteer army. So I want to thank the moms on that point, with 130,000 parents out there fighting tooth and nail for their kids. But what do I do? Well, I am primarily responsible in setting up these legislative committees that Moms for Liberty looked into starting, I guess probably about 3 years ago was when the first few started up. And there was never really anyone just dedicated to that task. So when I came in about 1.5 years ago, I was able to come in and fix maybe some of the ones who started a little more unhealthily, if I could say it that way.
What'd you call it?
Unhealthy.
Look, Charlie, everything has to start somewhere. And
I can make up words.
Yeah. Well, also everything starts somewhere. And we'll give shout out to Marie early on our team who saw it happening and tried to put some structure around it.
Right.
And we, again, like with everything else with Moms for Liberty, no idea what we're doing. We didn't have all these years of experience. We looked around at how, Republicans and Democrat organizations do it, how other nonprofits do it. No one, at least in the conservative side, was doing it quite like this with grassroots. And so just like everything else, we had to kind of pull it out of thin air and trial and error, which I think you're still in the middle of trialing and error. We are, because of Pennsylvania wanting to form officially, there's these loose knit group.
And I want to emphasize, these are volunteers. They're not getting paid the big bucks. And so that's a whole nother challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And so we set up these state legislative committees, and, my main task with them is education, right? And really elevating them.
When you say
find that-
education, like that could mean anything right now. What is?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, we're taking moms and dads and grandparents who don't have the academic acumen that I do, that didn't spend, 8 years in school studying history and government and economics and understanding and government and policy and understanding how all these things work. They may have taken a government class in high school, hopefully did, but they probably forgot stuff. They may have watched, a 1970s video on how a bill becomes a law.
How
right?
many? I don't know if you watch all 15 episodes of the Fire of Liberty, but there's been several say, I watched how a bill became a law, and that's what I knew. I didn't know anything. Who was it last week that said she didn't even know a school board existed? And so I think people really...
I like the SNL new version of that, where Obama comes on, the Obama character comes on and pushes Bill down the steps of the Capitol, and an EO pops up. So
I have not seen that.
That's a good one.
EOs are very popular these last, I'd say,
But
few
temporary.
decades.
But
yeah,
temporary.
they're temporary,
Yeah.
and you need the policy behind it.
That's right. So, I mean, when we say education, it could mean simply as, teaching them how a bill becomes a law. But beyond that, I resource them with a lot of things. So like model bills. Some of our states have started writing some concept bills, which are fantastic, kind of like a one-pager on what a bill should.
When you say some of our states, you mean our legislative committees are
writing?
So
right here in Florida, we had a phenomenal committee this past year. I think they had 2 or 3 attorneys on it. Again, volunteers.
Let's back up, because we got to remember some people watching barely know what Moms for Liberty is, let alone these legislative committees. So Moms for Liberty is structured by chapter. I'm just going to give everybody like a little background here. They're structured by chapter, and a chapter is a county. Excuse me. And so when we have now this official legislative program at the state level, each chapter gets to send one voting representative from their chapter to a legislative committee. Right. And you've been working on forming these committees in a number of states. How many do we have now?
So we have 23.
So in 23 of 50 states, we have Moms for Liberty legislative committees. Each chapter gets a vote, and they come together. And so you just said, let's back up, go back to where you were. Yeah. Florida had a strong one this year.
Yeah, they had a very strong one under the leadership of Kim Winker. And she was great. And they wrote these concept bills, kind of like a one-pager. And so, as you know, Florida was the state that really pushed us to stick our nose in some of the small hop business, right? Make America healthy again. And, they're feeding our kids, at least 2 meals a day at these schools, breakfast and lunch for free. And so the parents wanted a little more say in what was, being put on those lunch tables. And so they wrote a concept bill on that. And it was a framework really for other states to take note.
How much of a role do you play in that? Do they send you, in my mind, because I haven't really sat in on these meetings or these bills, a couple that I've been called into to mediate or whatever.
That's a good question.
But it seems like they would come to you and say, I want a cell phone policy statewide, or I want this. I'm sick of seeing this. How do I make it happen? And in my thoughts, you were going out and finding policy drafts to bring to them, or you're drafting it yourself, but you're telling me they brought you something they drafted. And
and this is a bit of an anomaly, but typically I would source, right? I go out and source it, but we have some great allies out there. As you know, Alliance Defending Freedom, Wisconsin Institute of Law and Liberty. There's a few others who actually write full bills, what we call model bills. And sometimes we have what I call gold standard bills that have been passed in states that are really the exemplary example of that bill on that issue. And so I will source them with a model bill, but also in this case, they said there's not a great bill out there on this. And so we want to sketch this out, and yes, they'll send it to me, see what I think. I'll make any changes, and we'll go from there. And it's pretty awesome when you see that build up into something bigger and an actual piece.
Did somebody sponsor that bill?
Yes, that particular one. Yes.
It got sponsored in the House.
Yes.
Did it get sponsored in the Senate?
Yes.
Did it get passed?
I believe so. We're still, it's still
a bill in
a
progress.
in
So we
progress, yeah.
know, as somebody that's been doing this now for a few years, sometimes it takes 2-3 sessions, years to get it to get
Yeah,
signed
and if I
into law.
pause when talking on bills, I'm one person. We have 50 states, and so even though we have 23 legislative committees, we have active chapters in 48 of 50 states, and even in the states we don't have committees, those states still come to me, which is great. Massachusetts, for example, they don't have a shot in Hades in getting a parental rights bill passed, probably, well, in the near future, but they'll still come to me, and we want to get the ball rolling in these blue states.
So if you pause for 1 second, I think this is a good time. I've actually never done this on the Fire of Liberty show, but this is a great time to ask for donations because Charlie needs a team. Charlie's a one-man band running 23 states and plus in other states, standalone chapters, helping them at the state level and legislative committees. And honestly, this is all run out of Moms for Liberty Foundation. So it's m4lfoundation.org, and you can donate there to help us. That's the 501c3. It's all tax deductible. You can help us grow out these legislative committees. And it is, they have legislative days at the Capitol that costs funds. We would like to hire some staff to support Charlie and really help it be even a more successful program than it already is.
Well, that's the dream, to build this out into something that is not only represented in every state, but that is active and healthy. And we're seeing year in and year out policies that we advocate within Mission get onto the governor's desk, or in like blue states, we fight against them tooth and nail, right? So that's where the victory is.
It's really shaping the future of this country.
It really is. It really is. And again, touches just about every home in America, for sure.
Yeah.
So I oversee these 23 committees, work alongside them. One of their first big tasks is coming up every year with what we call a legislative priority list. And so this is about 3 to 8 goals that they have legislatively within their state. And it could range from a parental bill of rights to a citizenship test, whatever type of policy that we want to advocate in that state within Mission. And so they bring those to me. Again, I'll work with them on that priority list, revise it. But yeah, I help them with all kinds of things. Testimony, expert testimony in their House or Senate. Like our moms and dads are awesome and bravely standing up and giving testimonies on bills. And so
for and against, I've seen some great testimonies.
And so sometimes they'll send me their testimony. We'll go through those, amend those if need be. So there's a lot of little things that I do behind the scenes in order to help make these legislative committees empowered and successful.
So our mission statement is to unify, educate, and empower parents. So you're unifying us at state levels.
I do my best to unify. Yes.
Yeah. You educate them by helping them understand the process and what a good bill is. And I know that you have helped them understand how in some state, and you have to know how in each state this works. Like you need to get it sponsored in both the House and Senate in some states, and some states not. And there's all kinds of different ways of how these bills actually become laws in different states. There's a lot of knowledge you have to have. And then obviously you're empowering them because you're helping with their speeches. You're sending them out to go do the work, because you don't actually, I don't want to say you don't do the work, because you do plenty of work, but the frontline grassroots work, you're empowering them to go out and do it. And so you are fulfilling our mission every day in this job. I find that very exciting.
Well, and you touched upon something there, like me being one person, I can't know everything all the time. I do my best to know the most that I can when a situation, arrives on my desk. But I want to give props to our parents, because a lot of times I'm learning every day too. I've been on this particular job, 1.5 years. And so I know I've got a lot of growth in front of me and in my department, but our parents are great about just jumping in and drinking from that fire hose and learning what they need to learn. And, you know, I can be there, like sometimes like, I don't know how to do this. And so we work through it together. I find myself being an encourager a lot of the times. You know, some of these committees that are just getting started, we have one in Michigan. That's an important state.
Yeah.
Electorally, but also just legislatively going forward. We don't know what the future looks like.
They've had some
gubernatorially
bad like amendments, I think. To
they
their,
do, but they've, you
that
know, a
have
lot of
passed.
these states have some critical governor's races next year. But beyond that, these bills that they want to get rolling or to fight against, they need to be encouraged, because if you live in a blue state and you know, I'm from California, it can be discouraging to just get, you know, whooped time and time again. But we see our parents starting to really be able to have an impact at the micro level. You know, we started the school board, as you mentioned, and school board policy is, you know, school boards aren't my focus, but some of those policies are very important, and they'll come across my desk as well, because we can make some progress at that school board level. And now with the administration that we have in place, you know, these blue states are in contempt. You know, they are going against some of these executive orders that are out there. And so it gives some of our parents in these blue states a fighting chance, right?
You really are working at all levels of government, because I know I've sent you federal
Literally.
legislation to
Oh, yeah.
review. And is this in mission? I've sent you amicus briefs. Is this what we want to sign on? So you're kind of a jack of all trades over there in our legal policy legislative area, and you're a one man band over there.
Well, and this is why state level advocacy is more important than ever. It's more important than ever, because when you look at the federal government, you mentioned the federal government, and we've got, federal bills that we have our eye on, like the Family Rights and Responsibility Act, the FRRA. It's like a parental rights bill for the nation.
Senator Tim Scott in
South
Carolina,
in my now home state of South Carolina, is the sponsor of that. I mean, does that have a chance passing? No. I mean, look at the makeup and the of our House and Senate and the gridlock.
Hey, don't tell Senator Scott that.
I know, but I mean, I'm a realist as well.
I think everything always has a chance, but to say it doesn't have a chance, don't you?
Well,
think that's a little...
I mean, the gridlock, right? I want to go back to the gridlock at the federal level. When you have the splits that we do in the House and Senate, it is very, very difficult to pass some of this federal legislation. And I'm a glass half full person too, but you know, I also balance that with a good dose of realism, and that's why we fight so hard at the state level, and that's why we link arms with such great allies in the fight as well. And I'm so thankful to be able to have so many of these allies come into my life and work over the past year and a half, because the grassroots, we can be powerful, especially when we can stand up and speak with one voice on these matters. And so, again, we're seeing some great Parents' Bill of Rights passed in these states. Tennessee had an excellent one last session, 2024 session, which became much of a gold standard because of the fact that it allows parents a private right of action, what we call teeth in the bill. Florida's didn't have that.
What does that mean? So private right of action, no one knows what that means. Sometimes you get in your policy wonk. So
I know.
You've been great on this episode, like this show. We've had I think a pretty good conversation, but private right of action or even teeth in the bill, what does that mean to the average person?
So, we believe here at Moms for Liberty that parents have the fundamental right to raise their children as they see fit, right? It's a right given, by God, not government, we like to say. But when a state oversteps on that right, what is the parent's recourse? What can the parent do about it?
Yeah, because you can create a bill that says slap on hand, you're not allowed to do that. But if they violate it, what do you do?
And in a lot of states, the early iterations of these bills, that's exactly what happened. It's a slap on the hand, and the parents don't have a recourse. And so the Supreme Court has developed these tests, rational basis test is one of them. This is going to sound a little wonky at first, and you may have to Google rational basis test, but that is where the burden of proof is upon the parent to prove that the government has overstepped. Well, good luck with that. Good luck with proving that when the government has the advantage that way. But what a bill that has teeth written into it, that a parent has the right to bring a legal action if the government oversteps, that places under a strict scrutiny standard, which is a higher standard that the court has developed, that places the burden of proof onto the government rather than the parent. And so we're seeing bills now written with that higher standard, the higher legal standard of review, that's more in, advantageous to the parent. And so, yeah, we've gotten smarter that way. The early bill in Florida didn't have that. And so in these states that
took us 3 years to get that early bill without that, just that across
right.
the finish line. It's a great
And
starting point.
sometimes
Then you
it
can
is a
amend.
starting point, right?
Yeah.
And you get what you can get. But if you can get more, you get more.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, with some of those early bills, we're having to now do fix-it bills, right? To get this higher standard in there. But then in like Tennessee or Indiana this year, we see the bills written with that higher standard of review in it, the teeth in it, so to speak, and the private right of action for the parent implemented. And hey, we're going to get what we can get.
Okay. Favorite part of your job?
Favorite part of the job is the people. And that includes, I mentioned allies, but most importantly, the parents that I've been thrown alongside with. And I was telling one of my organizational allies yesterday, one of the best thing about this job is the revelation of, who's really in our tribe. And I think, going back to COVID and in the early days of that helped start revealing, who's really like-minded in all of this. And to have so many people from such a diverse demographic come into my life and have the same goals and objectives in protecting parental rights at all levels of government. I think that's just, it's awesome that I get to wake up every day and do this job with other people who think the same way.
Worst part of your job? Be careful. Be careful here, Charlie.
we got a Humpty Dumpty syndrome sometimes, and
sat on the wall.
Had a great fall, and I have to put it back together again. And so there are some committees that maybe didn't start out as healthy, but now that I'm here, they have someone to go to. And we have some great stories this way. I mean, and I don't think Maryland would mind. Yeah, Kit Hart recently, she's from Maryland and she's on their legislative committee. But, about a year and a half ago, they were struggling. And we were able to, in short, put all the
pieces back together again.
And they are rocking it.
Maybe we should have called this episode Humpty Dumpty. That would have been like catchier. But we called this episode Educator to Activist.
Yeah.
And we're going to start winding down here. So just a couple more little things I want to chat about. Educator to activist. When did you, clearly were an educator, well educated yourself, you served as a teacher, and then you're now an official activist. When did that transition happen?
Yeah. I knew you wanted to talk about my transition. Not that kind of transition. Not that kind of transition.
You got to be careful with words around here, Charlie.
I know. Yeah. So I think at heart, I've always been that way. I think anybody who's known Charlie Misseijer for his life knows that I'm a passionate fellow. And that may seem strange to you because you probably see me as a little more even keeled. And in this job, I have to be, but you throw me on a a basketball court or the football field.
Really?
Yeah, they know.
You-
People know
Are you
that.
are you giving elbows? Are you doing?
Yeah, I kind of
the-
rip people's faces off. Yeah.
I don't believe
So-
it. Tamara, send pictures, send video. Want to see it?
Yeah, people are probably laughing right now because they know that, Charlie. But we kind of mellow as we age, right?
That's true. Yeah.
We kind of mellow. Our kids teach us a lot. I think my kids have taught me a ton of patience, but I think I've always been an activist at heart. I think that goes back to my family story, that we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Again, me not wanting to mess up that opportunity that my forebears provided me. And I always say we got one shot at this, and that can apply to me raising my children, and it does. I mean, first and foremost, again, I'm doing this because of my kids and my grandkids, and so I'm going to be whatever I need to be for them. And I find myself in this realm now, moving from the classroom, the brick and mortar, out into this essentially political and policy activism that is, I believe, unavoidable because our times have called for it. I mean, we live in a world where evil is real. We need to just, recognize that there are principalities and there are powers that are working against the natural order of things and what God intended it to be. And we've got to be brave enough to stand up and to fight against that. And so, in 2020, I found myself, yes, still in education, but things shut down. And so Tamara and I and the kids, we were out there at the freedom rallies, they call them in California. We were in my big 4x4 truck out the sunroof with signs driving around and these rally parades, so to speak.
Yeah, you were getting ready for Moms for Liberty. That's
We
what you were
were.
doing.
We were getting ready,
getting prepared.
even though I didn't know about Moms for Liberty at the time. I was being prepared for this, for such a time as this.
Do you think your grandfather would be proud of the work you're doing now?
I do. I think he would be proud of his son, his grandson. I know that they were ecstatic when I was born. I think I told you before the show started, I'm the only male to carry on this Misair name in the United States. And so pressure was on me, but I've had 3 boys. It's now on them. But I think it's important to, and I talk with my kids a lot, of my own children about this a lot, is to maintain a good name. It's
important to maintain. That's a lost value, I would say, in America. Say a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no, I think, you have to safeguard your integrity, right? And you have to be honest dealing and forthright. You can be in a field like I am, fighting hard, and still do that, right? But whatever you do, I want my kids to know, whatever they do, that they do it honestly, forthrightly, and maintain a good name.
Maintain a good name.
Yeah, because it reflects upon their dad and their granddad and
your grandfather that sacrificed all he sacrificed for them to have a better life.
Again, I don't want to squander that opportunity for myself, for my children. And I used to say when my kids were tiny, people say, oh, you got such great kids. And I said, well, jury's still out on them, but now they're starting to grow up and go out. I'm very proud of my children. They haven't besmirked the name yet. So don't do it, kid.
Is your dad proud of you? He's still alive, right?
He is. Yeah. He's
is he proud of the work you're doing?
He is. He actually reposted, the social media post for this show.
I hope he's watching.
And I think he said, I'm proud of Charlie and the work he's doing.
So great, Charlie.
My dad's a patriot. and my parents are patriots, and they love this country. I think my dad's probably his greatest disappointment was not being able to serve his country when he became a citizen. His brother had enrolled in the Air Force and fought during Vietnam, and my dad's goal is to join him. And my dad was a Division I wrestler, and he had all kinds of injuries from that and flat feet. And anyways, he was not allowed to join. He was rejected. But I believe that, his heart was there. That's all he wanted to do was serve his country. So he's been able to do that in other ways. As a public educator, I don't think I mentioned this, as a public educator for 40 years in the Los Angeles Unified School District. Yeah. He made an impact, and he was in the early years of the school choice movement with charter schools.
Yeah, LA schools isn't for the faint of heart. 40 years.
No, 40 years. 40 years. My mom was on the private school side of things. So I come from a goodly heritage. I want to make sure that that is passed on. And I pray that my kids pass it on to their kids. And those are starting to come as well.
I love it. So one last question we're going to close out with, and it's different from every other episode. So you think you know what's coming, but it's not. It's a different question. Because of your expertise in history and government and all of the things you've worked in and your passion and values that have been passed down from your grandparents and your father, what makes a good citizen of the United States of America?
Yeah, I think number one, love for country, loyalty. Again, both of those in respect of what has come before you. So love and loyalty makes a great citizen. And I want to make sure that I'm expressing those things, both love and loyalty, to the people that I serve in this country, because essentially that's what I'm doing. And I want to demonstrate loyalty to a country that's given my family everything. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
We're going to wrap it up right there. Powerful words from Charlie Misseijer, our Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs at Moms for Liberty. I hope you joined us for the full hour, because it was a great story of heritage and hope and family and values in America. And we come to you weekly on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. live on X, Facebook, YouTube. You can find us later on Apple and Spotify. Please give us 5 stars. Please follow, download the show, do all the things. We want to keep growing this show, because I think we're bringing you very important stories from the front lines of America, moms and dads that are fighting for our future. And we ask that you join us at momsforliberty.org. Thank you.